platform in Liberia, and I'm doing well. I'm doing okay. Yeah, cheers. I, I let me find how to pass this thing about. I'm using a mobile phone,
So
so
you could pass it to Miriam, if you want.
yes. So Miriam, please.
No, escucha, Miriam.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name is Miriam Miranda. I work for UNDP Costa Rica in productive landscape.
And how's your mood this morning? ¿Cuál es tu humor?
Enthusiastic.
Awesome. Will you pass it?
Ronald?
He already went. So
I don't see.
You can't see? Okay,
No?
so what about Gradia?
Hello everyone, my name is Gradia. I work with the platform in Liberia, and my mood this afternoon for us this afternoon is a little bit rushed because I had to rush from one meeting to come to this one, but I'm happy to be here. I'll pass it to Sandra.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Andraca. I work for the fishery platform in Costa Rica, and my mood is sunny, like the day today here, after so rainy season. I pass to Maya.
Oh, Maya, we don't hear you. I see you turned yourself off mute. You want to have another go? We'll come back to you, Maya. Sandra, do you want to pass to someone else?
Sure. Matthias?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I work at the Green Commodities Communities platform. I feel at peace. My name is Matias Ferreira. I'm pretty sure I know all of you, so no introduction needed. I pass it to Alex.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra. I'm supporting the Green Commodities program, so I don't work directly with any platform, but it's like general support. And my mood for today is rushed. Someone already said that, very rushed. I pass it to Jordan.
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan, and I'm currently working with the palm oil platform or commodity here in Papua New Guinea. And my mood is very tired doing NC submission for the launch of the platform here in the country. Thank you. I pass it to Rini.
Hi everyone, my name is Rini, and I'm the National Platform Manager for Palm Oil Platform in Indonesia. Sorry, I was late joining. Are we going to say about our mood today?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
really
please.
well done, Renee. Yep.
Okay. My mood today is a little bit anxious because tomorrow we're going to have a very important meeting where on the coordination of all interline ministries for the National Action Plan. So wish us luck. And I will pass it on to Maya. Maya?
Maya, we don't hear you still. Maybe you want to try and re-log in, see if that works. Can you pass it to someone else, Renee?
I think I'll pass it on to Ronald.
We already had Ronald, so you have to choose someone else. You could choose
Okay.
Popo or Pascali. or Pascal or
Okay, then
Bharati?
I will choose Pascal.
Okay. Pascali
Pascali.
or Pascal? Pascali.
Pascali.
Okay. Hi again, Rini. Hi, everyone. So my name is Pascal Bonzon, and I am working with the platforms in Liberia, Paraguay, and Indonesia. So my mood today, I'm preoccupied. I'm passing it on to Bharati.
Hi, thank you, Pascal. Hi, my name is Bharati. I'm working with a sustainable palm oil platform in South Tapanuli, one of the district in North Sumatra, Indonesia. And actually, I'm here in our office together with Popo. So we are in the same laptop. I think I will pass it to Popo.
Great.
Hello everyone, my name is Popo. Same with Bharati, I'm working with sustainable palm oil platform in North Sumatra, Tapanuli, South Tapanuli district. So my mood today is yeah, I want to learn more, but how about national platform? Thank you.
Thank you. So let's pass it to Pascal Fabier.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Pascal. I work on the Green Commodities community, all of you, and I'm calm and quite cheerful.
Can you pass it?
To you.
Thanks. So I'm Lisa Melvin, and I kind of work, touch all the commodity platforms, some more likely than others, but I have my eye on all of them at some level. And my mood today is also a little bit rushed. A good word. And I'm going to pass it to Gala, who just joined us. Just Gala, your name, what you work with, and your mood in one word, please.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. My name is Gala Toto, and I am the national platform manager on the oil palm technical working group. The goal is to transform the oil palm technical working group into a national platform, a full-fledged national platform. And my day-to-day activities is
That's all right, Gala. We don't need to know that. Just like who you work with. And what's your mood? How are you in one word right now?
Like my screen is so small, I cannot see the rest of the people.
That's okay. Just wondering, how are you in one word?
I am fantastic.
Great. Nice to hear. All right. Thanks, everyone. It's just nice to make sure that we hear all your voices before we start and that everybody knows who's on the call together. Okay, I'm just going to share some slides with you. As you know, if you've been on these calls before, which I know many of you have, this is how we roll. You can see the slides? Some thumbs up. Yeah, nods. Okay, great. All right, so well, I just wanted to say that this workshop is on the implementation stage, right? So the last two we did one on design, and then we did one on dialogue, and this one's on implementation. And I wanted to just note that this is a significant change in the process of a platform, right? At this point, we're getting into really like, how do we take all the thinking and the dialogue and all the work we've done to create a national action plan or a strategy for this sector to be sustainable and actually put it into action, right? So there's a real shift in terms of the kind of work that we're organizing and supporting at this moment in time. And so this is workshop 3 of 4 and of 3. But now I have a surprise for you, which is that we're going to have a 4th one. Aren't you lucky? Colleen and I, on the 28th of November, are going to run one focused on monitoring of platforms and national action plans. So I just wanted to flag that now so that you know that I'm not going to get deep into the monitoring piece today. I'll touch on it, but I'm not going to go into the details of it because we'll do that in a follow-up workshop, which I hope you'll all join. So yeah, we decided that that was important to do. So here's the big moment, the big transition. We're going from like potentially years, in some cases 1 year, of dialogue and organizing meetings and getting people to have shared understanding and to come to agreements about what kind of actions we should do and how to prioritize them. And we're moving from all of that into now people are actually going to have to actually do things, right? So people are actually implementing things on the ground. We're also moving from a kind of governance model that goes from, oh, I've been steering this process into now I'm going to be monitoring activities. That's quite a big shift as well in terms of leadership and governance. And we're also going from a kind of, as a team, oh, our role is to convene. And actually we're going to be focusing more on our role is to make sure that we have reporting happening, right? So that's why it's a big moment. Like, imagine you've just got your national action plan like officialized by the government. So first of all, that's worth celebrating. Pause. And then it's like, okay, now we've got to make these shifts in terms of how we work and how we organize ourselves to be able to deliver. So it's no small thing, really. I think it's worth noting that just that transition requires quite a lot of attention and energy and time. Okay, so one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is that is the financing. Like, because one of the biggest issues that we keep hearing is that you know, while we might have a national action plan, do we have all the money to be able to implement the national action plan? And in most cases, the answer is no, right? We don't have all the money to do that, and that's okay. Because we can always fundraise for the money, and then not just we, but everybody involved in implementing the National Action Plan can fundraise for the money. But it would be great to have, you know, 80% of the money already raised and ready by the time we started implementing. Right? Hands up who agrees with that. Yeah. So one of the things around this dialogue to action, steering to monitoring, convening to reporting that's super important is that we don't just only think about it in the moment when the plan's official, right? We need to start preparing for it in advance rather than suddenly like, oh, wow, now we have a national action plan that's been officialized. So now we have to make the transition. We need to think about it in advance. And this applies as much to financing, all right? So I apologize for the very dramatic shift in slide from beautiful butterfly to a lot of text. But I really wanted to share this with you guys. So basically, what I'm going to ask is that we take it in turns just to read out the bullet points on the page. And I'm going to invite people to do that. So Bharati, could you read the first bullet point on the page for me, please? You're on mute, Bharati, if you're talking.
Yes, Liz, can you repeat?
Yeah, we can hear you now. That's great. Yeah. Can you read the first bullet point on the page?
Yeah, so consider an investment framework that all stakeholders are committed to work within.
Yeah, exactly. So this is about having a framework like up front before you get to the point of having a final action plan, right? Like what might that framework look like? Who's currently funding different streams that are relevant to our work? Pascal, Fabier, would you read the next one?
This often run into hundreds of millions of dollars of investment over 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. We're not talking about, hundreds of thousands. We're talking about millions of dollars. So that's why not saying, oh, as UNDP or as the project team, we're responsible for fundraising. No, it's a collective responsibility, right? Who's got different streams and different relationships and different incomes that can support the implementation of this project. And, what budgets in the government are available to implement the pieces that the government's responsible for in the National Action Plan. I'm just going by along the line. So Pascal Bonzon, I have you next on my video screen.
UNDP should make sure the operational costs of continued platform operations are gradually taken over by the relevant public agency.
Right. So your kind of general annual costs, like for having a coordinator or the team, or for having a website and for having an annual plenary meeting, and just generally those kind of ongoing costs that have been covered by the project, we need to be getting ready for them to be taken over by whichever ministry is the appropriate ministry, or someone else potentially, right? Thanks, Pascal. Gala, do you want to read the next bullet point?
When the drafting team is moving from a draft national action plan to a more detailed final map, it must work with stakeholders to make sure actions are costed out and assigned.
Right. So, when you're drafting your national action plan in your technical working groups, it's good to plan at some point when you're getting nearer the stage of like the details, because you need the details to have an idea of cost, right? But to start saying, oh, this agenda for this technical working group needs to talk about what the costs might be to implement this particular action line, right? And then it's like, oh, and that might be parceled out about, okay, so WWF might be implementing this, or UNDP might be implementing that, or Conservation International implementing that, the Ministry of Environment implementing that. And we estimate that that's how much it costs, right? Thank you, Gala. Rennie, do you want to do the next one?
The work to cost out the actions should start together with the platform discussions on different solution models, and the cost estimate should be one of the central decision-making parameters.
Mm-hmm. Right. So here we want to be actually quite smart about not having actions that are going to cost like they might be like the ideal solution, but they're going to cost like $1 billion, right? So we don't want to have those kind of actions in our national action plan, but we also don't want to make the national action plan very small actions because we think we can't get the money. So it's like finding somewhere in the middle, like, okay, we could still like $100 million is all right, $200 million is all right, $50 million is all right, but $1 billion is not. So just being a little bit not too on the low side, but not too overambitious either, right? And using that what's the reality of the costs to decide also how to prioritize your actions. Like how often, when are we going to get the money to be able to do that? Next one, Sandra.
If the ones who must pay for the proposed action are not properly represented in the... Whoops.
Sorry, that was me.
Are not properly represented in the technical working groups, it will be necessary to engage them in the dialogue process and secure their commitment before the national action plan is finalized.
Right. Do you want to say more about what that means to you, Sandra?
Well, I think that that actually this is something that is all the time like happening, that you don't have everybody, you know, during the dialogue phase, during the dialogue process.
Mm-hmm.
But where we are finding out is that you discover like new projects that could be potentially funding sources for the National Action Plan. So I guess it's something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To try to engage, you know, everybody who is working in other projects or are planning new projects, to engage them in order to coordinate all the investment that is happening at the same time around the same commodity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so, and also, and as you said, you may identify them later on in the process, right? So it's like bringing them in later on. Thank you. Ronald, would you like to read the next one?
Okay. For the public sector, the objective will be the government to officialize the NAP and thereby generate a legal commitment to reflect action in public budgets and work plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is just like, if you don't get it officially approved by a government or a department, then where's the leverage to say they should put budget towards it, right? I think that's all clear for most people. Gradia, would you like to read the next one?
For the private sector, it will often be unrealistic to verify internal company budgeting or holding companies responsible legally. So emphasis will be more on signed agreements and commitments made through public statements, for example, on their website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so, Gradia, I mean, what does that mean to you? How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, it just shows that, you know, the dynamics with the private sector is, it'll be different from, for example, what we read about the public sector here, all right? So definitely it would not be realistic for us to say, okay, we'll verify what the company has in their budget and we'll hold them responsible for these parts, because their internal workings will be different from, say, commitment by the government. So we should probably emphasize or concentrate more on signed protocols and agreements that we have with them and hold them responsible to that. Okay. So
right. Yeah, and that often, you know, for a private sector or for a company or business, you know, their reputation and their brand is one of their most valuable things. So if they make a public statement, a press release or something on their website, that's a really big deal for them, right? They're not gonna, the risk of not meeting it is high. So we say that that's a worthy commitment, right? A sign of commitment. Thanks, Gradia. Jordan, would you like to read the last one?
Costing out National Action Plan actions in the NAP requires specific capacities. Unit supervisors of platform steering committees must make sure they exist in the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what do you make sense of that, Jordan? What do you think about that?
To me, it's a collaborative efforts from the team, as well as the probably coordinating committee or steering committee to be specially tasked to put out costings on the action plan stuff and making sure that specific capacities and expertise needed to implement.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to move on. You're going to have time to go into a paired discussion in breakouts later to identify what more you want to know. So if you're sitting there with questions right now, write them down and we'll capture them later. Cool. So that's a lot of like, how do we prepare so that we have a costed national action plan and so that we can know who's going to pay for what based on those costs, right, up front. All right, so this is what you've all seen before too, most of you, around the different outputs that we've identified as important to note along the implementation stage outputs, or along the implementation stage. And so in the implementation stage, we have identified like, oh, is it 4? Yeah, I can't see, 4 substages. So one is monitoring and evaluation. So a lot of the work that we do in this stage is supporting implementation, but also making sure that we monitor and evaluate that implementation, and then supporting any partnerships that are needing to be set up, like facilitating the setup of those to implement actions. And then over time, we're looking at how do we embed and adapt the work that we're doing and then transition out. And here we're talking about UNDP, transitioning out from being the kind of, maybe the contractor, the funder of the operations of the project, right? Or of the platform. First of all, we want a monitoring committee to be set up by the government. Anyone like to talk about why that's important? Jairo, I see you on the line. Welcome. Would you like to talk about why having a monitoring committee is important?
Okay. Do you hear me, Liz?
Yes.
Okay. We're talking about the steering committee meetings, of course.
Monitoring committee.
Oh, okay. Monitoring committee. Okay. I think it's important to have this kind of organism, because it's going to be the bridge to provide information to the national and international communities about the advance in the implementation of the action plan. And I think is a way to answer the question about what is doing the country to improve the performance in the environmental and social side of the production of each single commodity. So for me, it's a way to keep informed all the rest of actors about what's going on in the implementation stage.
I keep clicking instead of unmuting the next slide. Yes, thank you, Jairo. That's right. It provides that kind of like governance system and streamlined system to be able to do that, right? To be able to actually report and provide up-to-date information about what's happening. It provides a kind of structure for that, right? Which we need.
Yes.
Yes. I just want to flag that, at the moment, in some cases, you may evolve your existing steering committee for the platform into a monitoring committee, and they may keep their name steering committee. Their role might just change. Or you can set up a separate one and have both. And at the moment, we don't have a strong opinion for you about which is the better way. So I'm happy, that maybe that's a question that you want to talk about later as well. Cool. So the next one is a platform team evolves into a technical secretariat and is well resourced. Colleen, would you like to talk about why that might be important?
Well, the technical secretariat, no, sorry.
That's all right. Anyone else? I'll call on someone if no one volunteers.
Well, if I can try.
Great.
Perhaps in the early stages, the platform team is just coordinating events and activities and trying to get the action plan going. But as the time goes by, you now have to actually support the sector and drive the various bits that are needed, whether it's along the supply chain, whether it's providing feedback for smallholders, or if policies need further adjusting or something to that effect. That is what I would figure it means.
Yeah, that's good thoughts, actually, Ronald. I hadn't actually thought of that before, so thanks for that addition. And I think it's one of the things, it's a significant moment, like to draw a line in the sand and say, we had a platform team, and now it's going to be a technical secretariat that supports the monitoring and reporting and implementation of a national action plan versus a platform team that's convening dialogue, right? And so it's a kind of like almost like an external shift. It also links to the fact that most platform teams are contracted through a UNDP contract, and we may be in a position that people start to move to a government contract, right? So it's also signifying that there's a shift here in terms of potentially where people's lines of contracting and reporting go. And it may involve changes in staff, right? We ideally don't want that, because there's a whole load of knowledge that the platform coordinator and their team have gained, but that it is a moment where that might happen as well. The next one, so real-time updates of highly relevant information to platform participants. Anyone want to speak to that? Like, why is that important? Or what that means to you?
I think it's this is very important, because to get people engaged, and on the same page about the information of the platform and the progress, and also to keep people informed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Jordan. Yeah.
So it's a kind of engagement stuff thing.
Yeah, it's an engagement as we're keeping it up on people's awareness, right? Like making sure people know what's going on. It's great. The next one is action status is transparent online with media coverage of the work. Anyone want to talk to that?
Yeah. So I would say that in this stage is still relevant to have continuous exposure of your work, of what the activities are. Because it promotes accountability to stakeholders, partners, and it also gives relevance, and as I said before, exposure of what you are actually doing. So in the monitoring process, I'm sure this is quite relevant.
Yeah, totally. And that accountability piece is, you're spot on, Radia. Like making sure that transparently online is like, this is behind, or this is on track, or this is completed, or is a real way of keeping people accountable to each other as well. So awesome. Thank you. Next one, baseline measurements complete. Anyone like to speak to that? Like, why is that important?
Liz, this is Sandra. I guess that if you want to track your progress and report on your progress, you should have like your baseline already set. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but at least to have the baseline, but also how you're going to measure this baseline, I guess, with good indicators.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, in the template that we offer for a national action plan, it has in there like what's the baseline, what's the action, what's the baseline, and what's the indicator that you're going to measure every year, right? So yeah, otherwise, how will you know how much progress you've made, basically?
Okay, Liz.
Yes,
Liz,
Jairo.
And I have another one that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major jobs in a platform is also provide and collect the state of the art, the best information that we have about a single commodity. So when we develop the baseline for the monitoring system, we are putting together most of the time different pieces of information than most of the people want to know about a single commodity. So I think that in that way also we collect information related about what's going on with the root causes of the problems that we are facing. So for me, it's a baseline, like Sada said, to monitor the advance, but also it's important in the sense that you are putting together all that information, and that is useful, and it happens here in Costa Rica, to the government, because most of the times the government don't even have the information collected talking about a single commodity.
Mm-hmm. Right, so it's like a kind of compilation of, oh, this is where our commodity is actually at. The situation right now is this in pineapple, in fisheries, in palm oil, right? Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you, Jairo. Let's take the next two together. So annual progress reports and online monitoring reports about action plan implementation. Anyone want to talk about why that's important? Oh.
Sorry, me again. I think all of them are connected, because if you have to, update the platform participants, if you have to have a media coverage of your work, I think one of the tools is also through the annual progress report. Sometimes they're very technical, but usually it's good to have them online and to make them public. And also you use your online monitoring reports to elaborate your annual progress report. So I guess I think it's like all of kind of connected.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of show, your progress in a transparent way.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, I think, Sandra, links for me. I'm just thinking now, like, if you jump down here, I think you can see my thing, to the annual plenary meetings, that it's good to have some kind of report to go back to all your stakeholders, right? So the idea is that the platform still convenes people on an annual basis, all the stakeholders that were involved, so that they're like, oh, we're getting back together. Let's see what's changed. Let's see what we've done, right? And so that report can also support that meeting.
And I think that maybe one best, better practice is to share like the draft of the report with the participants, so they can provide feedback, or maybe they can provide some information that we weren't able to to catch.
That would be great. Exactly. Good. So then the next bit is government contribution or confirmation to contribute to cost of platform operations. Rini, do you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Great.
Because this is very important, and this is what actually we've been discussing, because we know that the national platform is a government-led platform, and the continuation of the platform is on the hand of the government. At the end, we're going to to the government. So it is very important to make sure that the government would support the platform activities and allocate some fundings to platform operations. I think that's all.
Great. Yeah. Sorry about the dogs. Thank you. That sounds great. That's right. It's just like a proof of their ownership, right, of the process moving forward as well. Fundraising, yes.
There is something interesting about this because sometimes when we develop the national action plan happens during a government, you know, and maybe in a year or it's going to change that government. So that confirmation must be renewed or must be sell again when you have a change in the government, so that you have the chance to get the funds if you have a different party or a different president in the government. The other thing that is interesting is that when you have the national action plan, you can see if it could be aligned with some of the actions that the government must do year by year. So you can put that actions inside the national budget. So it's going to be more easy if you have change in the government or change in the authorities, because when you have these kind of changes, each government have different priorities to invest his resources. And more if we see the scenario of crisis than we have talking about the economy in most of the governments in Latin America and around. So I think it's important to see that this thing of the government change. So it must be part of the plan to have a strategy to face these changes in the government, to keep this confirmation of contribution and resources alive. Because if you don't do that, when you have this kind of changes, maybe the priorities of investment gonna be different, and you're gonna lose the support that you gain for the implementation of key actions in the plan.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Jairo. Glad to have you on this workshop.
I can react to that, actually. Is that okay?
I'm actually going to move us on, otherwise we're going to run out of time, Pascal, unless it's like a minute.
Yeah, a minute.
Okay.
I just want to say to Jairo's point, I mean, one way of going around that is institutionalizing the steering, well, not only the steering committee, but the platform team and the technical secretariat into a sort of decree. I think this is what Indonesia is trying to do. And I think this is important. If it is institutionalized to that point, that it exists, by law, then it doesn't matter if a new if a new government gets elected. So just
that's what they did in Costa Rica. So that in Costa Rica, which Jairo worked on, the decree set up the monitoring committee with the technical secretariat inside of it. So that's totally right, Pascal. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you, Pascal.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, but just a little thing. Sorry, Liz.
I'm going to stop you, Jairo. Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. Go on. Later.
So then the next one is like fundraising to fill in the gaps to implement the action plan. So I think that I'm just going to do that one because it kind of is obvious. Basically, it's like, oh, we may have some gaps around, we don't know who's going to do this, and someone doesn't have the money. And it doesn't mean that UNDP has to do the fundraising, although it can. It means like maybe UNDP with, like we have a good example, working with WWF and Conservation International and IFC, collectively do some fundraising. Or, a big palm oil company or a big fishing exporter works with the government and fundraises with UNDP. So there can be partnerships to fundraise to fill the gaps, right? And generally we know that works better for getting financing than if we do it on our own.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
Listen.
Yeah.
I think it's worth considering that the financing of this National Action Plan being so important. The fundraising is not something you do on the side. You probably need to have a dedicated specialist as part of the coordination platform that works on bringing the funding to the National Action Plan to avoid overlaps, to optimize synergies between how the money is fundraised and all the rest. So this is not something that can just happen by everybody fundraising in their corner. It needs a coordinated approach. So worth considering how you resource your fundraising team.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Okay, then the next point is pilot projects secured to implement actions. Who would like to speak to what that means to you or why it might be important? Someone from a platform.
Okay, Elise, I think in our experience, we see projects develop or we develop a map to see what's going on in Costa Rica, talking about this kind of projects. And we see then, of course, UNDP have some projects, for example, related with key issues, water, soil conservation, and biodiversity conservation. And they are related to the core of the action plan. So we identify these projects inside UNDP, inside the government, but also in another agencies of the United Nations system. For example, in FAO or in ACNUR, talking about refugees, and all these kind of other agencies and institutions that have this kind of resources. So when you go to the process, it's important to keep actualized the mapping of the actors and the projects and the resources that you have around. So in that way, you're going to find more easily, if someone is developing a project, then you can align your work, talking about implementation of the National Action Plan. And in that way, you can secure, then you're going to have own resources and resources from another ones to implement key actions. But to do that is important. Then when we have the action plan finalized, it's important to make priorities. So the exercise to identify which actions could be or can put in movement the rest of the actions is also very interesting. So keep that priorities and keep actualizing the mapping that you have of actors and resources that you have around. So I think it's important to keep this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of those projects may already have been identified in the development of the National Action Plan. Like, oh, we already know that these people are doing these things, so they're already down to do it with money, right? And then there may be places where it's like, actually, we need these three organizations to work together, or UNDP and FAO, as you said, Jairo. And our experience says that we can't just expect those to happen. The platform team that's turned into a technical secretariat really needs to facilitate that those partners get together and that they really do create a project to implement, right? It's not just as simple as, oh, they'll just do it, right? We need to kind of keep on top of it. Let's do the next two together. So regular steering/monitoring committee meetings and annual plenary meetings. So why might those be important, or what do you make of that? Anyone?
Well, this can be a really important way of checking back in with the different partners who may not be involved in the day-to-day implementation, and also can help with further funding in the future, but really just important to check in and make sure also that you're on track with the vision. Sometimes some strategic things might shift over the course of the years of implementation, so that can be a really valuable tool.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, I think it's like, how do you keep this alive on people's agendas and with good governance and accountability, right? Like, that's, you get people together. So
Liz, I think that there is another thing. It's important, don't forget, and it happens to us all the time, that most of the conflicts that we have in all this supply chain, they are going to be alive, So this monitoring committee also is going to be a space to keep the dialogue alive and try to manage all these conflicts that you have inside the supply chain. So this steering committee or this monitoring committee, they're gonna see not only what's going on with the National Action Plan, they're gonna see also what's going on in the daily basis. So if we have a problem, for example, then we have news in the German magazine talking about the irresponsible use of agrochemicals. This monitoring committee is going to be focused on that conflict. So don't forget that all this thing is going to be alive. So they're going to be focused, and it's important in this way the role of the technical secretariat to keep enough time to keep going with the National Action Plan and also to deal with this kind of conflicts that are going to be alive, because we're going to have in a single room representative of the government, of the producers, of the communities, of NGOs. So that is going to be really complex. Sometimes even try to combine all these actors in a single place, even when they are part of a committee created by decree, is difficult. So it's important always to have this sixth sense to see what's going on and keep the work of this group focused in the implementation of the National Action Plan. And when we talk about the plenary meetings, then it's important to develop year by year. I think it's important because you're going to have the chance to tell to the whole community of the supply chains what's going on. But also you're going to have the chance to identify new problems that you're going to have in the supply chains, because we can solve some of the root causes, but we're going to have new problems emerging all the time. Yeah. So this is alive and it's really complex, in that sense. So I think it's important to see that.
Yeah, it sounds to me, and I'm just going to jump to you, Sandra, in a minute, like ultimately this monitoring committee and this platform that still exists becomes the kind of go-to place, whether you call it a board or a committee or whatever, for the country on responsible / sustainable production of that commodity, right? And that we don't want it to just be, I'm just monitoring the implementation, but actually they become that go-to place to discuss, emerging challenges, problems, conflicts, etc. And so, Sandra, I don't know if you want to just briefly mention your idea around that and how it works in, is it Chile? There's fisheries boards. Do you know what I'm talking about, Sandra?
Sorry, say again?
I think if you want to just mention like the structure of your thinking around the fisheries platform in Costa Rica, and maybe it becomes that, what Jairo is talking about, this kind of central place for the sector, right? Like they have in Chile. I think Chile was the example that you said they have.
Okay, but sure. Yeah. In the case of fishery policy, usually since it's a natural resource, so the administration is in the hands of the government. So it's very difficult to have like steering committees, private, public, sector committees. So, for example, in the case of Chile, what they have is like management, like fishery management committee for each fishery. So in this is what you mentioned, Liz? This is, yeah. So, okay, so of course there is the fisheries agency, the governmental agency, but then they come to fisheries management committee, and then each committee has a scientific advisory committee, and they integrate the public, the academia, the experts and the private sector in these commissions or committees. So we were thinking on something similar in the case of Costa Rica, to in addition to have a monitoring committee, to have like a national fishery committee for management committee for the large pelagics. In this case, this is the fishery for tuna, mahi, shorefish, sharks. It's an idea. It still is an idea.
Yeah. It just makes it very much like an embedded part of the future of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than like just a committee that one government could choose to shut down or not, right? So, yeah, great. All right, I want to just take a moment and take a poll with you all. We could go now into paired discussions, like in little breakout rooms, for like maybe 7 to 10 minutes. And then the idea is that you get to just chat with someone like, okay, what are you still curious about? What do you still have questions about? And then we'll come back together and hear them, or we can carry on going through the slide. So if you want the first option to have a chat, raise your hand. Have a paired, you'll be in a private conversation. No one? Okay, we'll carry on the slide then. So the next one is financing secured to facilitate transition. And so I'm just going to go through the three of them actually. There's finance secured to facilitate transition, action plan review and adjustments, and then steering or monitoring committee members reconfirmed. And this is in the section embedding and adapting, right? So it's that moment where like things need to change, or things change anyway, and we have to adapt to changes. Anyone want to talk like about why this is important to manage, have on our radar, when it might happen? Gala, do you want to say something about this? You don't have to. But. Are you there, Gala?
Yes, I'm quiet, I'm learning. We are not at the implementation level yet, but on the financing, and as per my thinking is the combination of the resources needed, and I think the different actors that's supposed to fund to ensure that these funds are secure, because if funding is not secure, and it may pose the delay in implementing the action plan. This is how I see it. So there's a need for that aspect of funding, I mean financing, where all the actors involved, like someone was talking about the government playing leading role, but I am thinking that it's true that the government playing the leading role, but there's a need for a commitment from all the parties, all the stakeholders, to ensure that and everyone is aware that there's a secure funding for the implementation. If that is done, then everyone can be sure that the implementation of the National Action Plan is current to be implemented. So that's why it's important for funding to be secure.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think here, in particular, we're talking about if we're getting to a point where UNDP transitions completely out and really the full ownership of the action plan and the platform is with the government, how do we make sure that there's money secured inside government to be able to continue to support the work, right? So this is particularly like, where does that financing come from, and how do we make sure that it's there? But that's great, yeah. And then also, there's pieces around, I think, Jairo talked about this, that new challenges will arise, and we may have to review the action plan and adjust it, either because we've been successful or because we have new challenges, or things we didn't realize happen. So there's just adjustments that need to happen, and there needs to be a plan for that. Whether that's in an annual plenary meeting, for example, is one option. And then the steering/monitoring committee members reconfirmed this pertains to something also that Jairo raised around, when you have elections and government changes, and you have, or leadership of different organization changes, which happens all the time too, that, you're making sure that you are on top of having a representation from that organization in the committee, even if that particular individual has left, right? So we just have to note that there's work to do there with that.
Liz,
yeah.
I think and this is really important when and going on back to Pascal, when we talk about the officialization process. I think it's important to see that all these things must be taken care. You must see about the governance organism that you're going to develop, but also the rules that are going to make possible the work of this. So you must think in things like how you select the representatives, how you change the representatives, how many time it's going to take to change all this. It's important to take that to see that. And also I think that this exercise includes also the issue of the money, and going back, I think it's important to realize that you need a powerful legal tool to make official this action plan. So in the Costa Rica case, we use an executive decree signed by the president and 4 ministers. But at the moment, I think this kind of decree doesn't have enough strength to keep the resources and keep the monitoring committee away from the political changes. So all these things must be seen in conjunction, in a group. The financing, the processes to adjust the plan, the processes to select and renew the committee members. And all this must go inside this officialization tool that you're gonna use. But I think it's important always try to use the most powerful tool. If you have a no environment to develop a law, maybe it could be the most useful tool. If the most powerful is an executive decree, try with that one, but always try with the high level possible to guarantee that this process of embedding and adapting is gonna run smoothly through the time.
So glad you're on the call, Jairo, considering you're the only person who's been through this process. It's excellent. Thank you for your input. Okay, so the last two is that UNDP transitions out in year 3 of implementation. That's a good target to have, and we should keep it. I'm not sure how realistic it is. And it doesn't mean transitions out like doesn't do anything. Maybe UNDP is still implementing pieces of the National Action Plan in partnership with other people, but we mean transitions out of kind of holding the thing together, right? Like we really want the government to be holding the thing together by that point. Anyone else want to talk to that? Not Jairo, just someone else's voice.
I have a comment on that. I really think it's very important. I think it's so important. I think the earlier we do that, the better. The later we do that, the more difficult it is to transition, because then it's totally viewed as a UNDP process, platform, staff, and it's really hard to get out. So yeah, this point is, I cannot stress it enough.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Pascal.
I just want to say, Lisa and colleagues, that as we monitor this implementation, I think there will be very interesting sign to track about the readiness for transition. And I think people who are the most advanced in that work, Yarrow and others, may think about, what are the signs we are looking for this is the right time to gently pull out. There must be few.
Mm-hmm. Sandra, you want to say something?
I was just going to mention that I miss in the embedding and adapting stage, like lessons learned. I don't know if you mentioned that, but when you review the action plan and the adjustments, I think that it's important also in order to adapt the plan to have an exercise of lessons learned, probably from the beginning, but I don't see in the process here.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Cool.
And I agree with Pascalie and Pascal, but I think that, and this is probably one of the things that UNDP has to work a little bit more, on these transitions, because usually there is not a clarity about, what is going to happen when, the project is ending and there is not like a clear exit. It depends, often on the funding of the project. So it makes a little bit difficult to do this transition. So I think that probably we have to think about like 2 or 3 stages funding projects, to have like the first stage for the, design and dialogue, but ensure that, we're going to have a second phase of the project for the transition, because I'm not sure that if that is happening in any of the platforms. So I think this is at risk right now in some of the platforms, probably. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. Thank you, everyone. A very alive and rich input. So I hope everybody's learned something from that. I'm just going to quickly move us on. Do you see this new slide, tools, guidance, and examples? Yeah. So I just want to flag, like I usually do, like where you can get more detailed information behind these kind of high-level outputs. So one is that there's a guidance document that I pulled those bullet points from called, the National Action Plan Financing for Implementation. So that guidance document is on the Google Drive in this folder, in the National Action Plan folder. So you can just go in there. It's also in budgets and financing. We put it in both. And it's in English and Spanish. And then we have a monitoring committee FAQ, which basically is a kind of how you might set up a monitoring committee, how often they meet, who's in it. And that's also it is in the monitoring and evaluation folder here. And then there is a National Action Plan monitoring system, which is coming. So that's the new piece that Colleen and I have developed based on some work from Paraguay that we did last year. And we're going to launch that for you in the next workshop that I mentioned, which is on the 28th of November. So wanted to flag those for you. And also just to say that this is the National Action Plan, the Pineapple monitoring online website that they have. So this is an example of something that already exists, where you can see what the actions were and what's the progress being made. And we'll also talk a little bit more about what that might look like for different platforms in our next monitoring workshop as well. We're exploring some options around doing something for all platforms to work with, like in a coordinated way. So it's just exploration stage, but we can talk to you about that in the next workshop as well. So with that, I just wanted to see if people had any burning questions or questions that they're left with that they're like, I really would like the answer to that before I leave this workshop? Anyone got any questions that they want?
I have a comment, not a question. And this is in relation to Sandra's comments earlier on. I think in terms of exit strategy, I mean, this is really something that we need to think about from year one of project implementation. It should actually be in the product. We should have an exit strategy, sort of at least the broad lines of it laid out in the product. And if we don't, this is something we need to look into from year one of projects. Certainly not in year 3 or 4, because then it defeats the purpose, and usually you are not able to put that strategy in place, and then you're going to be looking for more funding.
Thanks,
I mean,
Pascal.
the risk.
We talk about it as platform institutionalization and sustainability because it's handover rather than exit in this case. So fully agree with you that it should be being talked about at the beginning. And there's a whole separate thematic stream in the community that's specifically looking at that topic because we do think it's really important. So I think there's a lot that will come from that we then can integrate across the different pieces of guidance, right, as well. And an encouragement to you all, like, if you can join the next round of that workshop, that would be great. If you haven't already joined it, that is.
Liz, I just want to add something related with Pascal and Sandra opinions. I think I agree. It's important to see the exit strategy of the project when we talk about the resources and the technical support that UNDP provides. So that is important. But also we need to think if at a political level we must have an exit strategy, or we must think that at a political level we must remain, maybe as an observer to guarantee that the process is going to be respected by the different parts, or another way to be. So I think it's important to see this exit strategy when we talk about the money, but I think it depends on the country. If at a political level, we must have a different strategy, maybe keep providing support at a representative resident level, or any kind of issue like that. But I always think it's different for me, the political level and the exit strategy for the project. So it's important to have a reflection over that also.
Yeah, that's right. It feels like there's 3 levels. I'll come to you in a minute, Miriam. Yeah, just like the level of at the project level, totally right. Like UNDP doesn't want to renew the project. Then there's the platform level, like we want the dialogue to continue and for reporting and monitoring to continue. So who owns that? It doesn't go away. It's not like bye-bye exit. It's like, who do we hand it over to? And then at a political level, what's UNDP's continued role, right? So there's 3, for me, there's like those 3 different levels. That's really helpful. Miriam, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Regarding the thing that Jairo was talking about, it is very important. We just start the project and then we are completing pineapple, starting pasture and palm, and oil palm. And then it is a very difficult because it's a production. Sometimes the producer and the Ministry of Agriculture is not agree with the thing that we are doing in environment, and then how we deal with things. We deal with that. We hire a professional in institutional agreement, and I think that it is very important to have a person to have political incidence in government, because we need several agreements to complete by the project all this production.
Mm-hmm. So you hired someone institutionally between the Ministry of Environment and Agriculture, is that right?
To work. We hire a person to work, to put together and to start working. It's very difficult, very, very difficult. We need agreement, we need decrees, and we need many things, because at this moment, the Ministry of Agriculture is not agree with the Ministry of Environment that want to monitor the production of three commodities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And
it's a lot of work.
Yeah. A lot of work is every day. Some day we go up, sometimes we go down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of stakeholders involved.
Yeah. Thanks, Miriam, for sharing that. And just for context for everyone else, Costa Rica had elections in May, so this is the new people inside different ministries, and that adds another layer of complexity. Work to do for sure. Yeah. Cool. We have 3 minutes left. How about just like a one word go round, something that you learned from this call?
Hi, please. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, it's me using Bharati laptop.
Hi, Popo.
Hi. I have one question actually.
Okay.
This is interesting to learn from you all. Just
shoot.
I want to know in this implementation process, how do we connect this process in line with the province and sub and district process? I think just to connect each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my quick answer to that, because we're running out of time, but also I'm sure Rini maybe has a longer answer that she could share with you tomorrow. But my quick answer to that is that when you get from national down to district or regional or provincial level, that you're talking about like almost like a sub-implementation plan, right? So here's the national action plan, and then in a particular district, what would it look like to implement in that district? And therefore there's an implementation plan for that district. And then all the other things still apply, right? How does that get financed? Who's doing it? What's the baselines? Do you have a governance structure or a monitoring structure for that particular plan in that district? So you can apply all of it still in the district level. It's just making sure that it's like almost like an implementation plan that supports the national action plan. So that's going to be my quick answer for you, Popo. It may not satisfy you, but I want to honor the timing for people. And I'm happy if you want to write to me and Rini, and we can follow up afterwards. Does that sound okay?
Hopefully, that's good. Thanks. I will write to you.
Okay, great.
Lisa, just to mention as well that there's another stream that focuses on linking national and subnational.
Yeah, thanks, Matthias. There is, yeah. So I will alert, I can send details to Popo of that as well. Maybe you could do that after this call as well, just so he knows. All right. Okay, 1 minute, quick. A 1 minute firing round. I will go first. I feel, I'm just amazed. That's my mood. Amazed at the work. Sandra.
Creativity. Jairo.
A lot of work to be done. Work.
Work.
Yes.
Can you
Pascal,
pass it, Jairo?
My friend, where is Pascal?
Me? Or the other
Yes.
Pascali?
No,
Okay.
that is...
No, simple complexity.
Who are you
Matthias,
passing it to?
sorry.
I feel knowledge, and I pass it to Gradia.
I don't think task, but with cooperation, yeah, we can do this. But it's challenging. Yeah.
Who do you want to pass it to, Gradia?
Just go to Kala.
I feel sustained
And
And
passing to?
I pass it to Pascal.
That's Pascali, but she looks like she's frozen. You want to pass it to someone else, Gala?
Pass
So I'm like Jairo. I feel there is still a lot of work to be done in our platforms to get there. Thanks.
Can you pass it, Pascali?
Yeah, I'll pass it to Ronald.
Okay, thank you. I feel a bit enlightened listening to other feedback from other platforms and so on.
One word, please. But so enlightened.
Oh, enlightened.
Enlightened. Great. Can you pass it?
Is Rini still there?
Yes.
Rini, please go ahead.
Rini. Oh, Rini can't hear anything. So I'm going to pass it to Bharati for you, Ronald.
I feel like good sharing and knowledge.
Great. Can you pass it?
I pass to Rini.
Yeah, Rini can't hear us right now.
Popo.
Yeah, it's me. Berarti pass to me, Popo. I feel more thing to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Great. Can you pass it?
I'm pass it to Gadia already.
Yeah, you've got Miriam, Alexandra, Kathleen, Colleen. Mm-hmm.
Alexandra, please.
Thanks. I feel that there is a need of like a big deal of commitment and ambition. I pass it on to Kathleen.
I feel impressed, and I'll pass it to Miriam.
I feel compromised to do a very hard work. Everyone is done?
No, you can pass it to Colleen.
Colleen? Okay, I pass to Colleen.
My word will be sense making. Just pulling the pieces together.
You want to pass it to Matthias?
I'll pass it to Matthias, and I'll say that Rini, if I can quickly read, she said, my learning word is challenged to find strategies to make the platform sustainable and the NAP implemented. Matthias.
I already went. Yeah,
sorry, Matthias.
I pass it to you, Celise.
Has everybody gone? Maya, you're on the call, but I haven't heard from you and I can't see you, so I'm not sure if you're there. Rini, do you know Maya? Oh, Rini can't hear me. Okay, let's just finish the call. Let's just finish the workshop. Thank you, everyone. We will be sending up follow-up for you, and I really appreciated all your active input and thinking. It was great. So hopefully see you on the monitoring, the next one to talk about monitoring. Have a good evening, day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Nice to see you.
Ciao, ciao.
More times.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.